just to reiterate, the one question I asked at General Services, Chief White, was if we don't get the grant, then there's no alternative. We just.
No, sir, I've already
Yeah.
just about put Troy in panic mode with my request for this year for cops. I don't think I can go any higher than that. This is something that is unbudgeted. If we were not to receive this grant, there is no plan B. This would just be 3 cops that we do not get.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, it looks like my position drew a little bit of attention all the way down to Boise. So I got an article written about it here from Dustin Hurst with the IdahoReporter.com. I'd like to read it and make some comments along the way. Mr. Hurst writes, Coeur d'Alene City Councilor Steve Adams voted against more federal money for cops in his city, worrying the cash would come with federal strings. I don't like the potential of having to fund this in the 4th year with no plan, Adams told IdahoReporter.com Wednesday. Adams served as the lone dissenter on a 2-to-1 vote to move forward on the grant application. If the U.S. Department of Justice approves the request, Coeur d'Alene would receive $375,000 to pay 3/4 of 3 officers' salary and benefits for 3 years. Coeur d'Alene would have to pick up the remaining quarter of the cost for the first 3 years, plus the total cost of 3 officers for the 4th year. Grant rules require the city keep the officers on for a year after the federal funds run out. The Coeur d'Alene Police Department plans to deploy officers in the East Sherman area of town, recently plagued by burglaries. Adams drew the ire of leftist blogger Dave Oliveira, who bashed the councilor in a Spokesman Review blog post Tuesday. And this is exactly why Councilman Steve Adams should become a one-term council member, Oliveira wrote. A vote against 3 new officers simply because he doesn't like the federal strings attached is goofy. I'd like to make a little commentary on that. What Mr. Oliveira has done is used a juvenile tactic called a logical fallacy in the form of an ad hominem attack. And the reason he did this is because he doesn't have an intelligent, debatable argument to present. And so he resorted to name-calling. It's very immature, in my opinion. And Mr. Hurst continues, goofy or not, questions remain about the program's effectiveness. Money flows from the federal government to localities through the Department of Justice's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Since President Bill Clinton kicked off the program in 1994, localities have secured more than $14 billion in federal dollars used primarily to hire cops. The program exists, according to the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office, to proactively address conditions that give rise to public safety issues, including crime, social disorder, and fear of crime. Though American cities boast thousands more cops on the streets, GAO data suggests the billions invested have done little to cut crime rates. While we find that cops' expenditures led to increases in sworn police officers above levels that would have been expected without these expenditures, and through the increase in sworn officers led to declines in crime, we conclude that COPS grants were not the major cause of a decline in crime from 94 through 2001, the GAO reported in a 2006 COPS evaluation. The agency reported the federal cash cut total crime by 5% and violent crime by 7% between 93 and 2000. Researchers said other immeasurable factors led to the total 26% overall crime rate drop in the time span. These same factors cut violent crime by 32% between 93 and 2000. The Conservative Heritage Foundation suggests the grants had little to no impact on crime rates. For instance, the hiring grants did not have a statistically significant relationship with murder, rape, assault, burglary, larceny, or auto theft rates, although they were associated with negligible reductions in robberies, with a 1% increase in hiring grants associated with a 0.01% decrease in robbery rates, Heritage researchers wrote. The Heritage Foundation joins Adams in worrying about the nationalization of local police forces. Grants that subsidize the routine activities of local enforcement assigned to the federal government, functions that fall within the expertise, jurisdiction, and constitutional responsibilities of state and local governments, Heritage's David B. Mulhausen and Eric Little wrote in 2007. I pulled a few articles from the web to support this as well. Update, city holds off on cops, manager wary of strings attached. This, I think, came out of the Latah County area. Norwalk turns down cops grant. Norwalk Mayor Sue Lesh said it was a decision she didn't want to make, but she opted not to accept the grant because it came with too many strings attached. Federal aid for more cops has strings attached. City, county officials around the region don't know where they'd find matching money. Controversial police grant passed by Utica. This one passed, thought I would be fair, but it was a 5-4 vote. So my position is not goofy. My position is very well founded based off of this article and this research. Mr. Hurst continues, Adams blasted the two-faced nature of his detractors who often complain when state lawmakers in Boise restrict city council or county powers. They will then say these federal grants are wonderful, Adams said. They're hypocritical in a lot of their bashing. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that that's true. The grant monitoring standard and guidelines for all COPS grants and cooperative agreements, it's 117 pages. That's a lot of guidelines. These things come with special conditions. The GMSG will enable grantees to become familiar with the administrative, financial, and program-specific terms and conditions, special conditions, or other requirements that must be complied to ensure grantees effectively implement COPS office grant programs. We don't even know what those might be. They might be something that the community or the police department doesn't like. No local control in that. The grant conditions are listed on your agency's award document. By accepting this grant, you are obtaining federal funds from the COPS office. As part of that agreement, your agency acknowledges that it will comply with these conditions, and if applicable, additional special conditions specific to your agency. The Libertarian Cato Institute worries about the nationalization of police forces too. After President Barack Obama's administration released a report on improving police-community relations, Cato analysts noted a line suggesting the COPS office use financial incentives to entice localities to meet yet unknown federal policing benchmarks. As in most other policy areas, when it comes to police reform, a decentralized approach is better than a centralized one, Cato's Matthew Feeney wrote March 3rd. Feeney suggested federal officials with the benchmarks but forego the financial incentives to give localities the chance to properly evaluate proposals without dollar strings attached. In Coeur d'Alene, the full city council will take up the issue at its June 2nd meeting. Coeur d'Alene is hardly the only city in Idaho taking the federal dollars. Boise, Twin Falls, Payette, and Spirit Lake, among others, have taken federal cash in recent years. And while these are all very valid concerns, as I've said in the past, it's not my main concern. My main concern is the fact that the federal government is, I don't know how many trillions of dollars in debt, 19 trillion reported, probably quadruple or even greater than that. So for myself, I cannot in good conscience continue to be a part of the problem with accepting this debt money. And so really, if there's really a need for these officers, we have a $6 million fund balance. $500,000 could take care of it right now, and we could be flexible in how we would tailor these cops. They wouldn't have to be just relegated to the East Sherman substation. So for those reasons, I will be opposing this as I have in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.